Use of Weapons is the third entry to Iain M. Banks' iconic Culture series. Published in the year 1990, this 411-page tour de force continues the legacy of its predecessors, Consider Flavors and the Player of Games. Unsurprisingly, Use of Weapons shares a lot of the qualities with its preceding novels. It is relatively soft in terms of its science fiction hardness, only barely managing to not receive the quote-unquote softest rating. Moreover, the scale of the literary world depicted in Use of Weapons, while still offering new insights related to the broader culture via introducing several new locations, is nonetheless somewhat restrained by the fact that each of these new locations is only relatively superficially explored and acts only as something of a snapshot of different parts of this galaxy-spanning civilization and its surroundings. As with most other Culture series novels, Use of Weapons is quite unique in its own special way. Apart from the imaginative ideas that you would expect in a science fiction novel, and especially in a culture novel, the unusual narrative structure comprised of two interwoven plots is likely the most noteworthy aspect of Use of Weapons. The first plot goes forward chronologically, as you would expect in most novels, whereas the second narrative thread slowly reveals the tumultuous past of the protagonist in reverse chronology. The dramatis personae in Use of Weapons is on the smaller side, with roughly half a dozen named characters. Certainly the character progression of the protagonist is one of the highlights of the book, which is stylistically underlined by the aforementioned time-reversed narrative thread. In terms of critical reception, Use of Weapons seems to be the first entry of the Culture series to be nominated for several awards, namely for a BSFA award in 1990 and an Arthur C. Clarke Award in 1991. Furthermore, it won the Kurt Laswitz Prize for a Foreign Novel in 1993, and it was voted by the readers of The Register as the quote-unquote best sci-fi film never made in the year 2011. This also pretty much covers the section related to any adaptations of Use of Weapons. The critical acclaim parallels its popular reception, where Use of Weapons scored a comparatively high combined rating of 4.1 out of 5 stars based on thousands of reviews posted on Goodreads, Library Thing and Amazon. The story of Use of Weapons takes place several hundred years after the Idiran-Culture War that was prominently featured in Consider Flavors. Furthermore, the two narrative threads that comprise Use of Weapons take place earlier or roughly at the same time as Gurge's mission to the Empire of Azad, which was described in the Player of Games. All this chronological sorting of the different Culture novels is not really important from a spoiler perspective, since the individual novels that comprise the Culture series tell separate stories which at most will only vaguely reference events in other books. Use of Weapons is no exception here, at least in relation to the two novels preceding it. The first, forward-moving narrative of Use of Weapons deals with the attempts of Special Circumstances agent Rastko Derusa Diziet Embles Sma da Marinhide, or Diziet Sma for short, and the drone Skeffin Amtiskor, to recruit a former non-culture operative named Cheredenine Zakalwi for another mission. Zakalwi, infamous for his prowess as a Special Circumstances asset, is supposed to contact one of his former colleagues who is operating on behalf of the Culture in a politically unstable star cluster. As you would expect, not everything goes to plan on this mission, resulting in Zakalwi facing unforeseen obstacles. The chronologically backward-moving narrative thread at first describes several of Zakalwi's previous missions for the Culture, which are the reason for his infamy as a cunning operative. Finally, the last parts of this time-reversed plotline reveal Zakalwi's past on his homeworld before being recruited by the Culture. Use of Weapons is widely regarded as Iain M. Banks' masterpiece, with its intricate narrative structure surpassing what most readers would expect from a science fiction novel. According to Iain M. Banks, the narrative structure of the first version of Use of Weapons was even more complex and complicated than the ultimately published version that we have now. Although it was the first novel of the Culture series that Iain M. Banks wrote, it was released years later and only after the first two novels. Use of weapons' distinct structure enhances the examination of the main character's past traumas, his personal guilt, and poses the question whether absolution is even possible in some cases. This sets it apart from many other science fiction books, as it is a deeply character-driven tale that could easily be set in a historical, contemporary, or fantasy world, without losing any of its appeal. Furthermore, this is the first entry where we really experience how Special Circumstances operates and infiltrates non-culture worlds with its agents to further the culture's goals and aims. Granted, we already had some insights related to these practices in Consider Flebas and the Player of Games, but in the former we experienced the actions of Special Circumstances through the eyes of one of its opponents, namely Horza, and in the latter through the eyes of one of its more or less unwitting agents, namely Gurge. Through Diziatzma and Skefen Amtiskor, as the handlers of Zakalwi, we now get to see the back end of Special Circumstances and how it works, not shying away to employ morally questionable strategies, and people for that matter, in an effort to advance the goals of the oh-so-civilized, virtuous and progressive culture. Obviously, this aspect easily relates to contemporary Western democracies and their various intelligence agencies. Overall, Use of Weapons resembles the previous Culture novels when it comes to its science fiction hardness, literary universe and size of the cast of characters. However, Use of Weapons definitely shines when it comes to its characters, their complex motivations and relationships. Use of Weapons is a thought-provoking and emotionally charged novel that combines action, adventure, and philosophical musings in a unique and captivating way. It is a must-read for fans of science fiction and those interested in exploring the themes of power, ethics, and the human condition. If you liked this video, you may also enjoy the other reviews and content on my channel. Feel free to leave a comment if you want to discuss the novels or if you want to suggest other books that I should review in the future. Please consider upvoting and subscribing, it is much appreciated. Thank you for watching and until next time.